I grew up in a pretty good neighborhood, a neighborhood that I've called a blessing in the past because of its diversity. I grew up in Borough Park, Brooklyn, and where I lived, which was right across the street from the hospital where my mother worked for 30 something years, they were Jewish people on this side, Hispanics on this side, and Italians over that way. And as I went through school and college, I would tell people all the time, I'm so glad I grew up in that environment because I get along with everybody and I know about all these different cultures and I've never met a stranger. However, there were some situations with growing up in that environment that didn't work out so perfectly. And one of them has to do with this. See, I grew up playing roller hockey. And in roller hockey, instead of a rubber puck that's used in ice hockey, we used a 3M Super 88 electrical tape. It was twice this size, and it would get grinded down on the asphalt, on the rink floor, and this thing could be shot at upwards of 90 miles an hour. And as I played roller hockey, I got along with most people. A lot of people who didn't look like me. As a matter of fact, I was only one of two black guys in the whole league. And I'm talking about from Pee Wee up to Unlimited, which is the men's league. So for the most part, I got along with everybody. But there was this one guy who he just didn't like me. He didn't like me. And he would call me names and things like that. And I tried not to let it bother me. Other players would try to encourage him to stop bothering me, stop being mean to me. And I was just a young kid. And he was, at that time, to me, an older man. And I'm going to guess maybe he was in his upper teens, like between 18 and 22 years old. And he would shoot this puck. He had an amazing slap shot. And he would shoot it from one end of the rink all the way to the other. Except that there were some days when I was playing in that same rink. And usually some players play on one side and the other players play on the other side. And he would take these opportunities to wait until I'm going to get my puck out of my goal. And he would take slap shots, shooting this electrical tape, twice this size, Scotch 3M Super 88, towards me. And for the most part, towards my head. And I would hear this thing ricocheting off the boards. I would hear it ricocheting off the fence. And it never hit me. But if it did, I'm sure I would have been knocked out or could have lost an eye or something like that. And I loved playing sports so much. I loved playing hockey so much. I just tried to keep to myself and stay out of his way. And every once in a while, he would start doing this thing where he would shoot the puck and shoot it at me as hard as he could. I just didn't really realize what was going on. I was just thinking it was this one guy who just doesn't like me. But the terms he called me, now that I think about it, tar baby and other derogatory terms, I realized what it was. I realized what it was. And I thank God that this thing going about 90 miles an hour never got me. I thank God for that. So in the beginning of this video, I showed you this. Not necessarily the brand, but this can. So another thing I remember about my diverse neighborhood is one day me and a couple of friends were walking to the store, and less than 2 blocks away, like a block and a half up the street where we would walk all the time, there were these guys who didn't look like me sitting in front of the building. And as we were approaching, they started calling us names. And I just, I didn't panic. I just thought they were just being bullies. They were just, they were older than us and they were trying to threaten us, but nothing was going to happen. Nothing's ever happened. So me and my friends crossed the street and we went around the corner to the store. And after we went to the store, we came back and we walked across the street from the guys who were sitting there laughing, drinking, and calling us names. And we were walking back home closer to where we live, which was only a block and a half away. And as I was walking and talking to my friend, all I remember is me just wondering what happened. Something happened that rattled my head. And both of my friends had their hands on my back. And I looked at my friend and I was like, what happened? And they both were like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm okay. And I'm spitting out this white stuff. And I looked at my friend and I was like, what happened? Why are you asking me if I'm okay? And he was like, dude, they threw this can at you. And I was like, what? He said, yeah, here it is. It was a full can of beer, unopened. And I looked at my friend and I was like, are you sure? And he was like, yeah, you have the imprint on your jaw. So they threw that can, hit me in my face. I don't know if I blacked out for a second or what, but I was spitting out the chips from my 3 back teeth. 3 of my teeth on the right side of my mouth were chipped, and I was just spitting out pieces of my tooth. And we just kept walking. We didn't make a complaint about it. I never told my mom this happened. And my friends were like, wow, they must have threw that thing pretty hard because the imprint is still on your jaw. And I'm not sure how long it lasted. I don't know if it went away later on that night or I stayed out long enough until it went down and my mom didn't see it. But I remember that clearly. I don't talk about it much, but I remember it clearly. And now I have realized that was hate. It was a form of racism with the slurs they were yelling at us. And even though I was in this neighborhood of mixed cultures and groups, it failed at times. It failed at times because there were still people who didn't know any better, who either because of how they were brought up or what they saw in media at the time felt that it was okay to do that to young kids who could not defend themselves against those guys. And even though I didn't speak about it a lot, I remember it clearly.